The Battlefield fanbase experiences the rollercoaster highs and lows of game releases like almost no other franchise. Over the past 15 years or so, each game's launch has been greeted with a degree of dismay, varying depending on the state of the game at launch, and then the team has to go back in and pour even more effort just to rectify issues and pull it into shape. And then, just as it's become a beloved entry in the series, everybody crests the big drop and goes hurtling back down to the depths of gaming despair as a new game arrives to start that journey all over again. But there's hope for Battlefield 6. Dreams that this beloved open world shooter really is coming back to the rose-tinted glory days of Battlefield 3 and 4. And after the depths of 2042, I think we might actually be back with this one. Battlefield 6 brings us a contemporary war setting, taking place in a relatively implausible 2027 from a current geopolitical standpoint, with the steadfast bastion of Western military cooperation that is NATO suddenly under threat from a really rich PMC. No China, no Russia, it's the mercenaries of Pax Armata that are the baddies, managing to chip away at the Allies, and then the war that breaks out stretches from the Middle East, from Egypt through Gibraltar, and even comes to the US shores with a battle in Brooklyn. Truthfully, it doesn't really matter who the goodies and the baddies are for the multiplayer, but it does feel a bit toe-tippy and very safe after the games of the early 2010s and the baddies that those titles chose. Now, unfortunately, there was a hitch with our PS5 capture setup at the Battlefield multiplayer reveal event, so this video footage is lacking the appropriate audio. We'll have to make do with some generic older Battlefield game audio overlaid instead. But obviously we can talk plenty about the game, and what really matters is what the combat and the action is like, and here it is classic Battlefield. There's 4 classes: Assault, Engineer, Support and Recon, and you're in squads of up to 4 trying to use your different roles and skills to complement one another, and with the squad leader marking objectives to try and coordinate your efforts as a small group on the teams of 32 players for the matches of up to 64. Assault is about crashing into situations, able to boost themselves with a shot of adrenaline, and being able to have a second main weapon. Engineer has then got the rockets and a blowtorch for exploding and fixing up vehicles, and Support bundles together the old medic, healing, ammo resupply, and barricade placements. Recon then is all about scoping out the enemies with drones, placing spawn points, and sniping from a distance. There's the usual remixing of familiar abilities into those 4 buckets, and outside of the smushed together duties of the support class, this is actually a lot like the good old days. And I'm not talking Battlefield 4, I'm talking Bad Company 2. That feels like where these class groupings have really come from, and at that time support had the healing and the LMG, while Assault had ammo placements. In this case now, Assault does still now have a personal health stim, but needs Engineer really to step in to take out tanks, and Support for healing and ammo as well. Extending from the gadgets of your class, there's also a new score-based perk system called Field Specs, and this rewards you with a mixture of passive and active boosts. These start off small, such as boosting your own health regen when you revive an ally as a support, hampering enemy vehicle repairs when you damage them as an engineer, or building up to a top tier ability that you then manually trigger. This could be the Assault's combat stimulant, which highlights nearby sounds and reveals enemies when you trigger it. These feel like they'll be gameplay style enhancements instead of wholesale class mods, but we'll have to wait and see just how broad and deep these go. But there is always still some space for some controversy around the classes, and instead of it being what the classes are themselves, it's the weapons that they have. Where weapons used to be locked to particular classes in Battlefield 5 and before, that is now no longer the case. Each class still has a signature weapon type though, and they are boosted for embracing that synergy, so engineers will have things like better hip-fire control with the SMG, and Assault can draw and switch weapons quicker if you've got an assault rifle equipped. But you'll also have the freedom to pick from the full selection of weapons once you've unlocked them. It's something that a vocal part of the community has really railed against for months, but really, I think it actually makes a bit of sense for the cohesion of the team play. Having weapon freedom though makes it a smidgen more likely that people will switch between the different roles when they're faced with different challenges, such as if you don't have an engineer in your squad and you suddenly come up face to face with a big tank holding an objective. Someone's going to have to switch, and if they can't have their favourite primary weapon, they might be more reticent to do so. Bouncing back and forth between these roles and the weapons is a bit like putting on an old pair of slippers, but there's plenty of fine details to adjust to as well. The one that I particularly appreciated was how marking enemies now works. Instead of spamming a ping button, you instead mark enemies by actually shooting at them, in turn giving away your position a little bit. I wish you could still just point out a tank, but I think that this is actually a really great change. I also really like the new revive system where you can drag a fallen buddy out from the open and into cover, making you both at least be slow moving targets. Though obviously the support class can equip defibrillators that will just revive people so much quicker. And if we're really going to get into the weeds, I love that the end of match screen also now comes with a line chart representation of how tickets were depleted through a match of Conquest. But really there's just all of the bombast of Battlefield's trademark all-out warfare. Infantry plays a big role, but so too do vehicles, tanks, helicopters and fighter jets. I can absolutely see myself spending time manning the LMG for a buddy as we're driving around in a tank, holding down a key position in Conquest and then hopping out to fix them up when we take hits. Team play can be that simplistic, but I also enjoyed marauding, hopping onto an AA emplacement to take out a pesky helicopter that was bothering us. The map that I played a couple of matches on was on the rocky mountainside of Liberation Peak, and it's a set of 6 control points littered with military defences and buildings up at high altitude. There was some destruction available here, there's a few buildings that you could level, but it would really be for the urban battles where destruction is going to be felt the most, where entire facades of buildings can collapse in spectacular fashion. Once again, we'll have to wait and see just how wholesale the destruction is, but I get the impression it's going to be relatively constrained and used in a more tactical fashion, as DICE are describing it. Battlefield 6 will arrive with 9 maps and almost as many game modes. You've got the mainstays of Conquest, Rush and Breakthrough available right from the start, but there's also then the small ball of TDM, Squad DM, Domination, King of the Hill, and something new called Escalation, which we will have to wait and see what that is. And of course then there will be seasons of content after launch, with new maps, modes and events. So is Battlefield back to its best? Well, at first blush, it certainly feels like it might be. Thankfully it won't be too long before we can spend much more time with this game. There's 2 beta weekends kicking off in August, and there's sure to be plenty more to be said about this once we've played more. But also there's stuff still to really be revealed and explored only once the full game releases. How deeply will those field specs modify each class, and what balance changes and gameplay tweaks can DICE really make from the beta to the full game in time for October as well. But on the whole, the first impressions are really very good. So that's all that we've got for our hands-on preview of Battlefield 6. The beta kicks off on the 7th of August for those that gain early access, or the 9th of August for literally everybody else that wants to, and we will be diving in as soon as we can. We hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen here though, and if you have done so, make sure to like, subscribe, click the bell icon, all of the usual YouTube things, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!